Y'all, this is so much fun. Janice Hale Harris, executive leadership coach. She's going to talk to us about hands open and hearts surrendered. Her scripture reflection today is Ephesians 3:20. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. She does, and then she wants to reflect on the book You Are Special by Max Lucado. And her word she wants to reflect on is renewal. Janice, what a pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much. I'm just so excited to be part of this amazing group of people. I've been listening, for the last 90 minutes, and I'm like, what can I say to even add to everything everybody else has already talked about? I mean,
Ah,
it's incredible, and just all the joy that people have around surrender and around just sharing their stories has just been incredible. Incredible.
first of all, thank you. I'm so appreciative of all those that want to share a story because our stories matter and it helps people find hope and light and God in their stories. Um, Janice, before we get started, I want all to know that Melissa, with her story of attempting to take her own life at such a tender age, she called me today and she said, please tell everyone to reach out if they want to talk about that, if they have questions. Mental health is such an important um, conversation.
Mhm.
And anyway, she's there to do whatever she can or direct people to the resources that she now knows of. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you again, Melissa. And Janice, don't you dare say you don't know what you're going to share.
I mean,
No,
you
the story. Y'all, Janice and I have the gift of being together and sharing in an incredible Bible study.
Mhm.
And it's been such a pleasure to get to share time, especially in the Word with Janice. And the story she's going to share today, she shared at Bible study as a God moment.
Yes.
Janice, come on. She said, I can't wait to share. So, welcome, y'all. This is our last incredible story for today. So, sit back and enjoy. And Janice, take it away.
All right. Well, I first of all, I was so moved by sharing this story because over the years of knowing this young man, I've shared different parts of his story with people just depending on what was going on in their lives. But what I will tell you is that I am a spiritual director, trained spiritual director, and so while I have a practice, a personal practice, and certainly working with others. I would have to say that I wasn't honest with myself about how this might come across to others. And so it almost was a level of piety, I mean, for lack of a better word, around how I wanted people to see me a certain way. I needed to work on my insides so I could be that person on the outside and the inside versus just what you see and say, oh, isn't that wonderful? But it was something completely different. And we all know that we do that in our families. We represent ourselves in one way, but then we go home and get behind closed doors and it's something completely different. So this young man, Mike, came into our lives when my son was in high school and they played football together. And I had a rule in our house that anybody who came, as long as they followed the family rules, they were welcome to stay. Mike was one of those kids who came and was there literally every weekend. And when I first met Mike, and so imagine this is like 15, 20 years ago, he had a gold grill and he was carrying a pager. Two things I hated. And after about a year of knowing each other, Mike wanted to talk to me. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what is it now? What does this kid want? I mean, I have him at my house all the time. Another rule was everybody had to go to church. So he's going to church with us every Sunday, the whole 9 yards. And Mike said, I got rid of the grill and I got rid of the pager because I wanted you to be proud of me. And it broke me because the person I was being on the outside wasn't really the way I was thinking of this young man on the inside. And so I actually went into my bedroom and cried because I wanted to be the person I was representing to Mike. I wanted to be that person through and through, and I wasn't. And I needed to come to a surrender of, if you're going to represent this, then you have to be this, because it's only a matter of time before people figure out you're not who you claim to be. And you don't want people to figure out you're not that, if especially for those of us who practice the word and want to do the right things, that we have to be that. We can't just represent that. And this was really my lesson when my kids were in high school. I mean, remember, I was teaching confirmation classes, and I was working with people on spiritual direction. I was leading Bible studies, yet I needed a cleansing inside to really be the person that I was representing outside of my household. And there were lots of reasons, of course, we all have our reasons for the behavior that we have. And I would say probably a big piece of it for me is that I was a single parent. I wanted to make sure that my kids had all of the trappings of having a good life, especially because their dad wasn't involved in their lives. And I worked really hard to provide that. And my lesson with Mike was, this was a young man who basically came from nothing. He lived in an apartment. His mom at the time worked at Kmart, and his dad was in prison. I didn't even take time to get to know those things about him, which is why he spent so much time at our home. So over the years, Mike really literally became a part of our family. And his senior year in high school, he decided to join our church because he wanted to be connected to a church family before he went away to college. Well, I gave Mike a Bible. I just thought it was an appropriate gift to give someone who was joining the church. And Mike said, "This is the first Bible I've ever owned." Again, my heart just breaks because I'd had so many children in and out of my house. It never occurred to me to give them a Bible. Like, it was that personification of what religion looks like, but I wasn't doing the other things that I needed to do or that I should have been led to do for everybody who came through. So now that's something that I do is if somebody says, you know what, I'm really trying to learn more about the word, I'm providing them with a Bible. I had a friend who was going through recovery. He was in a recovery center. I sent him a recovery Bible because I know the power of the word. And when we apply it and we hide it in our hearts, then everything in our lives will be made better. It may not feel like that at the time, but it absolutely gets better.
Mm.
So I would say over time, Carol, I got to know Mike. He got married maybe a couple of years after he got married, his mom died. And I was one of the few people she would even let come to see her when she was sick. And they asked me if I would be the grandmother for his children once he and his wife had kids. And again, it's about surrender. I absolutely wanted to be in his life. I wanted to be in his children's lives. It was just so important to me. And so we've continued that. And now his kids are 9 and 11. And the story that I shared with Carol that just recently in our Bible study was I went to visit Mike and his family for the weekend because I wanted to see the boys play in their Little League football games. Well, Mike had started having the team say the Lord's Prayer before their practices and then before their games. This was my first opportunity to see this in practice. So I'm sitting in the stands like a proud mama as I'm hearing people say, "Oh, look at that. It's so good. He's teaching these boys how to pray." And just, I felt like, the Grinch, his heart became 3 sizes too big. That was me sitting in the stands, listening to people just commenting on how nice this was to see this practice on the field. Now, let me roll back and say Mike learned that in high school. So they always prayed before they went on the field, but for some reason in this with these teams outside of Dallas, that wasn't a practice, and now it is. And to think about the fact that here's a young man who really didn't know Christ, didn't really probably was a believer to some extent for the little bit that he knew, but the influence that we had as a family, and to see him now as a next generation and his children as the following generation and all of the other children that they're impacting as a result of his practice of the word. I can't even put into words what that meant to me. And I was like, I have to go tell people that when we share, when we clearly, just sincerely share from the heart, how God can take that little ripple and turn it into something we couldn't even imagine. I know I've been going on and on. I'm done, Carol. What questions do you have for
Oh,
me?
don't. I wish you would go on and on. And I know the audience heard this. Number one is I want to thank you because, it's a constant state. I think every single day I figure out, okay, I got to do all this stuff on the inside. Let's get the plank out of my own eye,
Yep, that's
clean
right.
from the inside out. And I so appreciate the statement. And I know most, if not all, the audience does as well, is that you said, I'm doing these things. I'm not really walking the talk. I'm doing some things so that I will look a certain way.
Absolutely.
The good news is you knew you wanted to be like that and you were working in that direction. And what I love is this kiddo was such a teacher.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
how we are one another's teachers. And I will say, youngsters, my kiddos have taught me more than anything in the world,
Mhm.
right? And I believe that we all need to be reminded of that. I want to thank you for that. Are we, when we're not having these conversations on camera and, at Bible study or at our jobs, or are we that person when
Mhm.
we're at home?
Absolutely. We have to be that person all the time. And Mike really, it was a beginning for me. So, we're talking about a 16-year-old who allowed me to see my true self, and it wasn't good. And I needed to go and change that. And so every day now, that's what I work towards is doing that. You talk about learning from the children. I would always say that God takes care of babies and fools. So I was twice blessed. So,
Sign me up for that title. Well,
yeah, I know, right, exactly. So
Janice, I'm going to argue a little bit. You were actually an incredible person even prior to that. You knew the example. You welcomed these kids into your home. You fed them, made sure they were safe, and you took them to church.
yeah,
I
it,
mean, oh my goodness gracious. And isn't that why we all go? Because we're trying to become better, and we have to practice again and again and again, just like surrender. So
mhm.
I so appreciate that. And again, you surrendering and growing through that story, you made generational change in this child's life and family.
Yeah. God made generational change, and I became a conduit in that process. And He made generational change in me because my children also got to see that example. They got to watch how I accepted Mike into my home, and now to watch my children, my son in particular, with his own children,
Uh,
and how important it is for him to be that vessel, watching him work with other young men in the community. All of that came because of my willingness to surrender and be on the inside the person I was showing people on the outside.
I mean, seriously, by the grace of God,
Mhm.
good things happen, right?
Absolutely.
And we surrender and we're willing to be used.
It's so important. It's so important. And we can be used in little ways. Like I never thought just having these kids in the house and saying, okay, we got to go to church and we do this and we do that, and had no clue the impact that that would have. And all of us have the opportunity to do that. It doesn't have to be something big. We're always waiting for that monumental something that we can do, but it's the little things. And those are the things that people remember most about us, how we made them feel, and
Uh,
did we truly, truly accept them for who they are?
I'm telling you, Janice, Mother Teresa said, someone asked her, how do we do great things? What do we do? She
Mhm.
said, well, start by smiling at the people in your home.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, Janice, and if you see Mike, tell him to come visit, and I'd love to hear his side of that story, of
Yes.
how his experience was, and
Well,
tell him thank you because for being such a great example to all these kiddos as a coach. I mean, really and truly. And as we wrap up here, so for you, the practice of surrender was surrendering. You were being obedient, doing the right thing for the right reasons. And then all of a sudden it affected you.
yes. For me, the surrender was surrendering my whole heart. Not just, so I'd surrendered my heart, but not my whole heart. My
Mm,
whole heart to being who God was calling me to be every day in
mm.
every way. That was my surrender.
Wow. No coincidence that you're wrapping us up today because ultimately that's what this is. It's the practice of surrendering our entire hearts
Right.
in each
Absolutely.
present moment, whether it's an easy one or a tough one or not even tough, just an unimaginable place. I was watching a show and uh, there was a nun speaking to somebody, and I think they were at the hospital. They said, I don't know why you're a nun. I just don't get it. And she said, because he always helps. And she said, well, it didn't work out for me. I'm leaving here and my loved one didn't make it. And she said, but you survived. And there
Mm,
are things that we survive that, I know you and I know people, and I know in the audience, they know who I'm speaking about. I cannot imagine what they have survived.
right. So
And
true.
so many will say, well, it was by the grace of God, even though they didn't feel his presence. They were mad, all the things. They continually just would surrender. I think so often we forget that we get to surrender. When you say the whole heart, that means the parts of every emotion that
That's right.
bring the fear, bring it all, bring the anger, and surrender it. And I want to thank you so much, Janice.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my experience with Mike and how he made me grow up.